What's happening? Turn this down. Look at all these people. Grab your practice pad if you got one. We're just hanging out today, man. Just chilling for an hour. It's Friday. We locked down. We ain't got nothing else to do. Look at all these people, man. Mumbai? What? Sid, what should I do to improve my dynamics? You see what I'm doing right here, right now? That. It's all about lifts and levels, man. Go from here to there. That's all you need to do. Classics. Did I start out in drum corps? I wish. I wish, man. That's one thing that I don't want to say I regret, but I envy drummers that spend a good amount of time in drum corps. You end up with chops like Keith Carlock. I'm not that. I'm not bad, but I'm not that. Robin, congrats on the 200K. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. This is just a coincidence. This is the first official live stream hang of the year. Just so happens to be around the same time I hit 200,000 subs. The two aren't related, but we're going to celebrate that today anyway. Seth, quick question. Phil Gould or Gary Husband? No disrespect to Gary Husband, but after Phil Gould, there was no more Level 42. That's just my personal opinion, man. Phil Gould was the man. South Norway. What is going on? Gary T, was I on Drumeo? Absolutely was. Had a great time, man. Went out there back in November. Was out there for 3 days, shooting some content with the boys. It was a fun time, man. It was a really, really, really nice guys over there. Shout out to my Drumeo family. You guys rock. You know what? I'm really flattered that everybody thinks I was in drum corps. I totally wasn't. I was not. My chops would be way better if I was. I'm just, just always working on the hands. So it looks like I was part of drum corps, but I was not. The Armor Piercer. How do flanged, die-cast, and wood hoops affect the sound? I was always a big fan of die-cast hoops. Still am. I totally prefer die-cast hoops. I don't know. It's just you get a little bit more projection out of die-cast. I notice it more in the snare. When you're cracking rim shots on a snare that's got die-cast hoops, it'll wake up the neighbors, man. It's my favorite hoop out of the three. Wood hoops are cool. They kind of warm up the sound a little bit, but not enough for you to really hear the difference. You know what I mean? Wood hoops are more for the aesthetic. They just look hot on the stage. Your drums look a lot more expensive with wood hoops on them. But Wood hoops are expensive. So don't go out and spend a ton of money on wood hoops thinking it's going to dramatically change the sound of your kit, because it's not. It's going to look hotter, but that's really about it. Philip from Slovakia, what's going on, man? ZP Luxury. I got nothing against boom stands, man. I used to use booms all the time. But as you can tell from my kit, everything is nice and compact. I don't really need the extra reach. I can kind of set them up nice and straight, pull everything in, and I'm good to go. Jake Green got an SPD1 pad because of me. Let the company know. Maybe they'll send me some dough. Daniel, will you release some new merch soon? Bro, let me tell you something. I got some new stuff coming out, man. There's a new hoodie. There's a new long sleeve tee coming out. 2 new hoodies. There's a zip up and there's a pullover. I just saw the mock-up yesterday. You should see this thing, man. It will be out probably in a few weeks, but you're gonna dig it. This stuff is crazy cool. Luke Thornton, how do you bury your stick in the snare head with traditional grip? How I do it? Well, it's a combination of 2 fingers that I'm using. I don't know if you can see this, but if you go back and watch one of my tutorials on the traditional grip, I talk a lot about the cradle, which is right in here. Believe it or not, a lot of the work is here. You need to strengthen this area of the hand right here, right? This is the cradle. And you could effectively do everything that you need to do just with that, just pinching the stick right here, right? There's a lot of stuff that you can do. And when I bury the stick into the head, which is something I like to do when I'm cracking backbeats and grooves and stuff, it's a combination of the cradle and let me see how I'm doing it. Yeah, it's a lot of it is the cradle and this area of the thumb right here. There's a bone sticking out. The end of the stick is sitting right up underneath that bone there. And when you secure the stick between the cradle and that one bone, because you can kind of pinch it, you can feel how it kind of goes in like that. When you do that, this is what allows you to open your hand right up and get those really strong sort of, you know, Todd Sucherman, Vinny Colaiuta, like wicked backbeats, right? And all I'm doing is bringing the stick down with the cradle and the thumb. These fingers ain't doing nothing. They're just watching the action. So that's basically how you do it. George wants to know, why have you gone back to traditional? Let's address the elephant in the room. Because I'm not going to hide it, man. I remember the video that I made, it wasn't too long ago, where I told y'all that I was kind of retiring from traditional grip, did what I wanted to do, and you know, I was kind of not really giving it up, but I was pushing it back to the back burner, and I took a break. But something funny happened. And it shouldn't surprise me because I talk about doing this too. But basically what happened was, during that break, my traditional grip got better. And I'm talking way better. I'm talking like almost 30, 40% better. I picked up the stick again after a long time from not doing it. And everything that I learned prior to that was just enhanced. And that happens. When I talk about taking breaks from the drums, all of that stuff that you retain continues to improve, believe it or not. Your brain never really stops processing information, and it's a part of the whole muscle memory thing. So when I picked up the stick again, I just noticed that it just got way better. It was weird, man. So yeah, I don't know. You might have noticed in the last few videos that I'm using it a lot. That's why. It's just like my traditional grip now feels about as strong as my match grip. And that was the goal from day one. So that's why. Any tips on how to keep your strokes even? Ori Aloni. How to keep your strokes even? Well, there's a couple things that you need to pay attention to when you're doing that. One of those things would be just levels. So when you're practicing on your practice pad, keeping your levels even will, it'll be a big part of that. So if you're doing single strokes like that, you got to sort of imagine that there's a bar here, right? So when you're doing your singles, keep your eye on that imaginary bar and try to keep the sticks from not going any higher than that bar. It's a good way to control your levels. Same with doubles. Right? You just want to kind of imagine that bar sitting there. And you just want to, practice keeping everything even. If you're doing a match grip, same thing. Another thing you can do is practice in front of a mirror, right? To make sure that, especially when you're playing match grip, because, one hand should look just like the other one. Just like that. And that's it. You're just practicing levels at, different tempos and different volumes. Like that. There you go. You know what? Give me a second, y'all. Let me go back. There's a million friggin' questions here, which I love. By the way, if I can't get to yours, man, don't freak out. Don't freak out. Let me just go back and see who's here. Jen Topping wants to know what's the benefit of using traditional grip. You know what? It's, I don't know if there are necessarily benefits to the traditional grip. It's just a different way of doing things. I know there's a lot of grip snobs out there, a lot of grip haters that kind of dump on traditional or dump on matched or whatever. Stop doing that. You're embarrassing yourself. You sound ridiculous. Listen, there's two ways to drive a car. You can drive it stick or you can drive it automatic. There's two ways to play the drums. Matched or traditional. I say learn both, because the benefit for me, if you want to call it a benefit, I feel like a different drummer when I use traditional, because I got to approach the kit in a different way than I would with the match grip, right? So, the other thing about traditional is that this isn't easy. It's not an easy grip to learn. So there's the whole accomplishment factor of it. Like once you really nail it, and you can get around the drums the same way as you would with the match grip, you get that sort of sense of accomplishment from doing it. You don't wake up learning how to do the traditional grip. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to earn this. This takes a lot of work. So there's that. All my favorite drummers play traditional grip. looks cooler in the photos. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's no actual benefit. You're not going to play better with one grip or the other one. I say learn them both, man. It's just two different ways to approach the kit. Hang on. Did I ever try Stuart Copeland's modified grip? Yeah, and it's freaking weird. Like, I can't do it. I don't know how he does it, man. Because typically it's like this, right? Where the stick is sitting between the middle finger and the ring finger, like that. Stuart has this thing happening, which I really, like, I can't get this happening. But he's got a ferocious traditional grip like this, and it works for him, and it looks just as cool. So, yeah, actually, I know like less than a handful of drummers that I've seen do the same thing. Another friend of mine named Sean Rickman, who's a monster on the drums, he's the same way. He uses these giant 2B sticks, and he's got that whole modified traditional. Whatever works, man. Whatever works for you. There's no wrong way, really. Just don't hurt yourself. As long as you can find a grip that won't promote any bad habits or long-term injuries, you're good to go. Hang on. Hang on. Bartek Glinsky, I think that's your name. He wants to know, when do you think is the right time to look for actual gigs and come out of the basement? My perfectionism is telling me to stay there forever. Listen, what's happening is your perfectionism, as you call it, is the one thing that's holding you back, right? Because the truth is, you're not going to know how good you are until you start playing with other people. So I would suggest getting out of the basement, get out of that little comfort zone of yours, and start playing with some people, right? That's the only way you're going to improve. You can't be a conversationalist if you're talking by yourself all the time, right? So as far as how to find gigs, like, I'm old school, man. I grew up during the time where you had to post handwritten ads on the wall and, like, you know, music store backroom lobbies and, you know, putting ads in papers and stuff like that. Now with social media, it's like people are getting gigs left and right just from online presence. I know people that have gotten serious gigs just from being on Instagram, right? People getting discovered by bass players, producers, you know, artists themselves. They're being discovered on Instagram. The only thing you got to do, man, is just, you got to put yourself out there. Get past that whole, you know, if you're insecure about anything, you got to push that aside, because eventually you're going to have to deal with it, right? But, you know, just hop on Facebook, put the word out. Say that you're looking for some people to play with. I can guarantee you, you're going to find some people. Let me catch back up in real time. Hunter wants to know, how important do you think learning by listening is? He means spending time listening to different genres and intentionally paying attention to the percussion and rhythmic elements. Hunter, you pretty much nailed it right on the head. For me, anyway. I say that because that is exactly how I learned to play. My first 3 years, like, I never took any lessons. Like, I've never sat in front of a physical teacher. I'm one of those sort of self-taught, play-by-ear type people. The bulk of my practice in the beginning was just doing that. It was putting on my favorite records, listening to what's going on, and trying to copy it. I did that for the longest time. And I didn't really get into like digging in and studying what I was doing until after that. Like probably my 4th or 5th years when I got serious, because that's when I started listening to a lot of jazz fusion. So that stuff is hard to lift on your own. It's hard to figure out what's going on when you're playing that type of music. Thankfully, a lot of the stuff that I was listening to, right? Chick Corea, John Scofield, Weather Report, Yellow Jackets, countless others. That sort of era is when I discovered like all the drummers at the same time. Steve Smith, Vinny, Weckl, Colaiuta, Will Kennedy, like all of them. And it just so happened that they all had instructional videos. So no, I didn't take actual lessons in front of a teacher, but I spent a crap ton of dough on instructional videos. Because I always say you got to get it from somewhere, right? Being self-taught doesn't necessarily mean that you're physically teaching yourself how to play. It just means you're not taking lessons with anybody. But you still got to get the education from somewhere. You can't lock yourself in the basement and then come out 3 years later awesome without getting any instruction from somewhere. So that's what I did. I listened to a lot of records for a few years, and then I bought a lot of instructional videos to sort of get in there and see what was happening. And that's how I learned how to play. Boom. Hold on, y'all. Man, this place is filling up. This is cool. By the way, this is going to be a regular thing. I'm going to try to do this once a month. So stick around. This is not an experiment. Like I had planned to start doing this from like back in November. Ben Gr. I don't know if your last name is actually GR, but anyway, Ben wants to know, he's curious on how not to lock up when playing fast. That's a good question. As soon as he starts to push the tempo, I start using my arms instead of my wrists. That's a no-no. That is a no. No, don't do that. The thing that you need to realize is that speed comes from the fingers and, you know, to a certain degree, the wrist. But a lot of the speed comes from that, right? There's none of this moving right now. There's no way that you're going to be able to move your forearms this quick. And even if you could, why would you want to? Like, who wants to work that hard, right? Take advantage of the fast twitch muscles and build those up so that you can do that. And then effectively what ends up happening, like with traditional grip, there's a lot of this. There's a lot of doorknob turning happening there. But none of it is coming from here, right? You can only do this so fast. So you really have to rely on the smaller muscles. The smaller muscles are just as strong, by the way, just because they're smaller, right? Don't discount them. But yeah, you just got to learn to use the wrists and the fingers to get that speed out. And the other thing too is that it helps you to stay relaxed, because I can keep my elbows nice and tucked in and still do that, right? Looks nice and smooth and everything. So yeah, once you start to build these muscles up, you can release all of the tension and you just won't lock up anymore. Norris Jones, Fort Collins, Colorado. What's happening? Michael Carney wants some tips on developing left hand. There's a phrase that I want everyone watching right now to remember. Get yourself a pen and a pad or something. Write this down. Because this little phrase will serve you for the rest of your life. You ready? Repetition fixes everything. That's it. That's all you got to remember. Repetition fixes everything. If you want to learn how to do something on the drums, if you're trying to build a muscle, if you're trying to work out a technique or whatever, you figure out what the correct movement is and you do it 1,000,000 times in a row. That's it. It's all muscle memory, right? That's all that is. I will never forget how to do this. Same with that, right? Once you learn it, you don't forget it. So as far as developing your weak hand, the reason why your weak hand is weak is because the muscles, you don't use it as often as the strong hand. So you just got to develop the same muscles that you're using in your strong hand and get them up to the same speed. So you want to develop your weak hand. A really good way to do it is to just, when you're working on your practice pad, because a lot of it will be done on the practice pad, believe it or not. If you spend more time on this, it'll happen a lot quicker for you. But it's just a lot of repetitive movements on the practice pad. And in a lot of cases, you can make it work 10 to 15% harder to sort of get it up to speed. Best way to do that is just get yourself like a towel, hand towel or something, fold it in half, and split your practice pad in half. So just lay your towel or whatever you're using on one side of the pad, like your weak side. And when you're doing things like double strokes, you're basically trying to create less rebound on your weak side, right? So you have to physically work it a little bit harder. So when you're doing doubles, you're forced to work your weak hand a little bit harder. And then you just do doubles for like friggin' 3 hours. That's it. That's all you need to do. The muscles just have to come up to the same level so that they look and sound exactly the same. Like that sounds like one stick. That's what you want, right? So yeah, that's the best way to do it. Just figure out the correct form. If you already have a strong hand, you can use your strong hand to train your weak hand. That's one thing that I used to do a lot. I would set up my laptop in front of me and point the camera down, put it on photo booth, point the camera down, and just look at my hands and make sure that they looked exactly the same with whatever I was doing. I would pick my hands up and make sure that it was an exact mirror image, right? And then I would just work the pad like that. It's nothing fancy, man. You do that for long enough, your weak hand will be up to snuff in no time. No time. Hang on, man. Let me just catch up. Let me catch up. Freddie Garner, what's my favorite ProMark stick? 5A Rebound Active Grip. It's essentially what I'm using now. This is just sort of the white version that came with this Real Feel pad, which is available, by the way. You can get this. I don't have the link in the description yet, but maybe I'll put it in afterwards. But you can get these now. You can get this at Sweetwater, or if you're in Canada, you can get Long McQuaid. And I'm not sure, like the package that I got came with the sticks. I don't know if they all come with that, but that's where these came from. But yeah, that's my favorite ProMark stick. Sometimes I'll use the 5B version of the exact same stick, but yeah, that's the one. 5A, Select Balance, Active Grip, Rebound. Stick of the year, as far as I'm concerned. Zuraj tuning in from Slovakia. That's messed up. Shout out to Slovakia, man. This is going back to my other question. Dimensio. Does this mean that online lessons are half self-taught? No. It means that you're still fully self-taught. Like I said, self-taught just means you're not getting in your car and heading out to go sit in front of a teacher. You're choosing to educate yourself, but you still got to get the information from somewhere. So if you're spending all your time, you know, sitting at home, watching my videos, you're still self-taught. I'm just feeding you the information, but you're still essentially being responsible for your own progress. That's all that means. And the other thing too is that there's benefits to being self-taught. There are moments where I kind of wish I studied with somebody. But I don't regret for a second teaching myself how to play, like learning on my own, because you know I didn't have any habits or techniques or anything that I copied off of somebody else, right? Because if you go to a teacher for long enough, chances are you're going to start to sound like that teacher, right? When you're self-taught, you're teaching yourself in your house. You're essentially just kind of developing your own thing. You know what I mean? Like you're not taking on anyone else's sort of habits and personalities or anything like that. Because there's a lot of drummers out there that sound like they're teachers, which is fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, like learning at your own pace and developing your own vibe, that's important. For me, anyway. Ben Fox wants to know if there's any tips in believing in yourself. Well, the most important tip that I can give you for that is regardless of what level, what skill level that you're currently at, don't compare yourself to others, because that is a progress killer. When you're constantly looking at other drummers and, you know, you spend a lot of your time on Instagram watching all these drummers wild out with these crazy videos and stuff, it can be discouraging if you've only been playing for 2 years. And you start to compare yourself to other drummers. Don't do that. That's a trap. That can hold you back in a serious way. And I know this because I've done it hundreds of times in the last 30 years. My wife has had to slap me across the face a few times and just snap out of it. Stop comparing yourself to other drummers, because it can really kind of bring you down. You just have to you have to trust your own abilities, and you got to embrace your own abilities. You're not going to be able to do everything. There's a lot of stuff I still can't do. I can't play like Chris Coleman, and I don't care. I don't need to play like Chris Coleman. I respect how he plays, and he's a beast, but I'm not Chris Coleman. So the only thing I can tell you, man, is just continue to keep working at it, build your skills up. And the thing that's going to keep you going is progress. Your own progress is what's going to motivate you to keep going. Because fact of the matter is, man, like when you're gonna have several moments, several really gratifying moments where you'll be sitting in front of your practice pad or you'll be sitting on the drums, and all of a sudden you're gonna do something that you weren't able to do just 2 weeks ago. And you're gonna get pumped up when that happens. That's really encouraging stuff, like when you see it. And like I said, as long as you keep at it, you're gonna have several of those moments. And stuff like that, you know, it just kind of builds up your confidence. So yeah, just keep practicing and don't compare yourself to other drummers, because that's lame. Seth Cashman. He's got a question. Seth wants to know, hey Rob, what is your technique for playing that 3/16 note groove on the hi-hats? Like Teen Town. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Teen Town, Weather Report. Having trouble getting that thing going without tensing up. Good question. That'll be hard for anybody if they don't actually know what's going on. When you hear stuff like that, the thing that you got to realize is that they're not muscling out every single stroke, right? You can't play grooves like that smoothly and cleanly without using some sort of economical type of stroke where you're getting multiple bounces out of one stroke. That's basically what happens, right? So Teen Town, that's essentially what's happening there is there's 3 strokes, but I'm only physically playing one of them, which is the first one. So I'm throwing the stick down, second stroke is a rebound, and then the third stroke is a pull-up. So I'm getting 1, 2, 3, like that. I remember what I was saying before about, you know, developing something and doing it a million times in a row. That's what you got to do a million times in a row. So you're throwing it down, letting it bounce once, and then snapping it back up. When you snap up that last one, basically what you're doing, pulling up the butt end of the stick, which is pushing down the front end of the stick. So that's, throw it down, let it bounce, catch it. So just pick a tempo, throw on the Lord of the Rings trilogy or something, and just do that through the whole thing. Break for snacks, but pick it right back up. The reason why you want to do this slow is because right now, your muscles are learning how to move. This is why you can't rush it, right? Give them a chance to figure it out. Once they figure it out, then you can start to speed it up. Boom. That's it. There you go. Don't mind me, man. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm just catching up. Stuart Welton is 70 years old, 70 years young. Excuse me, my bad. How do I start playing? Just start. Just start playing, man. If you don't have a kit yet, practice pad is your best friend. Get yourself a practice pad and a cool pair of sticks like this, and just start moving the sticks around. Just start doing some basic exercises. Start learning how to do single strokes, double strokes. Starts there. And then you can go out, get yourself a nice 5-piece kit, set it up in the basement, start watching my videos, and you can start playing. Ori from Israel wants to know if I can recommend some good albums. Man, listen, I only got like 25 minutes left. I could rhyme off 2,000-3,000. But if you just want to start getting in there and doing some playing, I highly suggest listening to The Police. If you don't already listen to The Police, you need to get on that. Listen to a lot of Level 42. If you don't know who they are, Google them. Level 42. I recommend the first 4 or 5 albums. Get into some Van Halen. All of this stuff will help you develop your groove. Listen to a lot of funk, a lot of 70s funk, a lot of early 80s funk. There's a lot, man. There's a lot of albums. It really depends on what you're into. But hopefully you're into everything. Because if you only listen to one style of music, you'd be cutting yourself short. You're going to be missing out on a ton of good stuff. But yeah, Police, Level 42. I'm gonna start you out with those two. Jason Stevens, I missed your comment the first time, but I'm going to read it now. Not sure if you saw my comment earlier, but I wanted to give you props on staying in shape from your original snare tuning tutorial till now. Absolutely night and day. Jason, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for noticing. Yes. Yeah, it's kind of a, I don't want to use the word emotional because I don't want to get all sappy on you. But yeah, if you go back and watch a lot of my earlier videos, the first thing you're going to notice is that I was way heavier. Way heavier. At my heaviest, I was 289 pounds. At my heaviest. And you don't realize it until you lose it and look back. But yeah, man, it's just, you know, this is a physical instrument and you got to stay in shape to play it. So, you know, maybe one day I'll make a video on just the whole correlation with drumming and weight loss. But I didn't have much choice, bro. Like I had to do something. My doctor told me at the time that, once your doctor tells you that you're morbidly obese, which is the clinical term for being like, super heavy. Once your doctor tells you that, man, that's hard to digest. Seriously. You go home and you think long and hard about all of your eating habits. So, after I got that little diagnosis, the next day I got a gym membership. The very next day. And I just started hitting it. So I ended up dropping 75 pounds or something like that, like over the next year and a half. And as far as how I did it, man, I couple of years spent in the gym, but eventually I fell in love with walking. Walking is like the best thing ever, man. I would get up, because I have the luxury of working at home, right? So I got the extra time to do it. But I would get up like 5 days a week in the beginning, which I did for a long time, throw on my headphones, put on a podcast or something, and I would walk for an hour. Sometimes an hour and 20 minutes, whatever. But there were so many benefits to doing that. Like it just kept my head clear. It allowed me to do some serious thinking, about some career moves, stuff like that. But the main benefit, of course, is the weight loss. Walking, don't let anyone tell you that walking isn't effective. I lost a ton of weight just walking. Just walking around your neighborhood. Didn't have to turn into a speed walker or nothing. Just throwing a good pace, get a drum podcast in your ears and start walking. I cut out a lot of sugar, cut out a lot of fat, and this is pretty much all I drink. It's been, I don't even know how many years now, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But this is all I drink now. Occasionally we'll have a little bit of wine with dinner. I don't really drink any alcohol other than that, especially for recreation. I don't touch alcohol for recreation. Just a sip or two with a nice steak. But for the most part, I drink water and tea. And when you do that, man, like once you lose the weight, it's super easy to keep off. Super easy. So thanks for noticing, man. Appreciate that. The whole weight loss thing, that was a long journey for me. Just reading. Mr. Bean wants to know, can you make your cymbals sound better? You can make them sound different, but you can't really make them sound better. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't tune a cymbal. But, you can sort of change the characteristics of it. If you want to tighten it up or something, you can drop a moon gel on it or something if you want to get more stick definition. But technically, no. Like you can't make a cymbal sound better. Like it pretty much is what it is. You can only change the sound of it. Pearl Disciple wants to know, how about practicing on a pillow? There's a lot of drummers that would probably disagree with me on this. I'm not down with it. Doesn't mean it's wrong. I'm just not down with it. And funny enough, I had the opportunity to talk to Jojo Mayer. He's not down with it either. Not that that gives any more validity to it, but here's a reason why. If you're a beginner drummer, slight technical difficulty. Corrected. When you're a beginner drummer and you're learning how to do double strokes, There are certain aspects to playing a double stroke, physical aspects, that you need to learn. And one of them is the value of rebound, right? It's not just about learning how to bounce a stick. You want to learn how it feels, like how the stick feels when it's rebounding, right? That's a big thing for me. When you're practicing double strokes on a pillow has 0 rebound. Now some will say, well, that's the benefit, right? Because you have to muscle those out. But for me, it's useless because I always compare it to trying to learn how to dribble a basketball on a sandy beach. It's pointless, right? As soon as you throw it down, it's not coming back up. So there's no way that you're going to learn how that ball feels when it gets back up on your hand so that you can throw it back down again. That's why I always recommend, if you're learning how to do any kind of rebound stroke, it makes sense to just use a practice pad. Because if you don't know the proper form yet, and you start muscling double strokes out on a pillow, number one, you're going to open yourself up to injury because you don't have the right technique yet. And number two, it's hard to properly learn how to do that without having the proper surface to learn how to do it. So that's just my take on it, man. Like, there's a lot of drummers that swear by practicing on pillows. You hear Dennis Chambers talk about it a lot. There's a lot of notable drummers that have had huge success practicing on pillows. I'm not down with it. I think it's kind of silly for me. For multi-bounce strokes like that. But I did used to practice on a pillow when I was developing my backbeat with the traditional grip, right? Learning how it feels to really whip that stick down using the cradle and the thumb. Using a pillow in that instance is great because you can really whip that thing down. And if in the beginning your accuracy is not there yet, you don't have to worry about hurting your hand because the pillow is going to absorb the strokes, right? So that's a great way to develop that. Just use a pillow. And this is what I did. Again, hundreds of times in a row to develop that whole thing. The whip, the elbow. If you're currently working on your traditional grip and you want to work on your backbeats, using a pillow in that case, highly recommended. Double strokes, foo-foo caca. Andrew M. I guess he's looking for a tip on counting odd time signatures. There's a pretty easy way to sort of introduce yourself to counting odd time signatures. And that's basically just using groups of 2s and 3s. This is a super old tip, mental technique, whatever, that you hear a lot of drummers talking about. But using groups of 2s and 3s, that'll make a little bit more sense of the odd time stuff when you're on the kit, right? Because you can group 2s and 3s together to pretty much come up with anything. So any kind of odd time signature, 5, 7, 9, any of those multiples is going to have at least one or a couple of groups of 3 in it, and they're super easy to count. So 7, for instance. 7 would be, one way to do 7 would be 2 groups of 2 plus a group of 3. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. right? That kind of thing. When you learn how to do it that way, you can count any odd time signature you want and break it up however you want when you do it that way. It's one thing that a lot of drummers do when they're doing the crazy, like the odd time signatures with a multiple with a denominator, I should say, of 16, right? All that crazy Virgil Donati stuff. When you're doing the 2s and 3s, it's easier to figure out what they're doing. You can hear the phrases better if you're going 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2, that kind of thing. So that's probably the easiest way to do it. That's, you know, super basic and good introduction to doing that. So just take whatever number that you want to learn. Say you want to learn 9, and just use 2s and 3s in whatever combination you want, really, until they add up to 9, and count them that way. Because every one of them will work. So there you go. That's advice on that. Christian Parsons from the UK. I agree, man. I agree about that Phil Collins thing. Phil Collins was a monster drummer. When you listen to that early stuff, God, like when he first started playing drums with Genesis, Phil was a monster, man. Like he was a fantastic player. But unfortunately, yeah, posture, man. Posture can seriously mess you up. Like for a long time. And I don't know how much of a contributing factor that was, but Phil Collins had horrendous posture. If you looked at his setup, the way his drums were set up, I don't know how he played it. Funny enough, Chester Thompson, same thing. Like when you get a side shot of Chester's setup, you wonder how is he even making this happen? Because first of all, he's like 9 feet tall, but his snare was like way down here, and it was on this much of an angle. So you get this thing happening, right? If this is where it starts, everything else is going to be messed up. If you're seated too low or too high, like all of that stuff, posture is a big deal. Don't ignore posture. I need a sip of water. Because I'm doing a lot of talking. Give me another second. Anyways, yeah. You know, we of course all love Phil Collins. But didn't have the best posture, man. But he certainly could play. Who else is here? Jacques Retro. Jacques. I'm going to say Jacques. I think that's right. Any advice on perfecting double strokes on a single pedal? Yes. Watch my friend Larnell Lewis. Not gonna lie, man. His foot is light years better than mine. He's got a great video actually up on Drumeo where he's talking about how he uses his pedal. There's different techniques to getting doubles out of your pedal. Like it really depends on your approach. You can do the foot slidey thing or the heel toe thing. Mess around with whatever ones you want. I would look at those two first. There's plenty of videos on YouTube. You can just type in heel toe technique or slide technique. Take a look at both of them. Your foot will tell you which one it likes. Right? It's going to gravitate to one or the other. But I do know that seat height will play a factor in it. If you seat it too low, you're not going to be able to pull it off. The higher you sit, Like if you're pretty much at the recommended height for however tall you are, it'll be a lot easier to pull off. But yeah, that's just another one of those things where it's just you got to figure out, just find out what the correct movement is, do it slow, and do it often, and you'll be fine. It's just like developing double stroke with the hand. You know, learning how to do that rebound stroke. You can do the same thing with the feet. So that's my advice. Just figure out what the proper movement is. Practice it slow, and then do it for like a year and a half. Tom Woosley wants to know if I can talk about the pointer finger in a traditional grip. So the role of the index finger with traditional. I'm playing first because sometimes you really just got to see what it's doing first. But essentially, when I'm teaching traditional and the role of the index finger, for me it just kind of acts like a ceiling for the stick, right? So I don't want to say there's a right or wrong way to do it because there really isn't. You'll see some drummers, it'll be more pointed out like this. Some will have it like super curled in like this, like Carlock does. I don't necessarily think that there's a right or wrong way to do it because the bulk of the work is happening here and with the thumb. You don't need the index finger to do that. I can open my hand right up without any use of the index finger. But when things start to speed up, you can sort of take advantage of the index finger by curling it in a little bit. I don't know if you can see what's happening here, but I can go from here, and if I just curl the finger in, I can curl that finger in to get a little bit more sort of speed. And I sort of liken it to lowering the ceiling on the stick. So it also kind of helps me with rebound strokes and ghost notes because I do a lot of that controlling with the index finger. So right now, what I'm doing is, like you can see my thumb moving, but it's not really, I'm doing a lot of it with the index finger, so I'm just basically dribbling the stick with the last digit of my index finger. Just like that, right? But if I was to sort of assign a main role for the index finger, for me, the way I do it, again, it's that whole lowering the ceiling kind of thing. Hope that answers your question. And it's 3:58, man. I got one more question, and then I'm going to sign off. You know what? Let me finish off with this question. By the Armor Piercer. Finish off on a high note. Not that there were any low notes during this whole hour. Hopefully you guys had fun. I had fun. But he wants to know, what's the absolute best cymbal you've ever gotten to try or own. In general, considering price, sound, and everything. I don't know if y'all can see it from here. Look at my my screen. You can see a little bit, but you see that last cymbal back there? That big one? That is a 22-inch Masters Swish. That right there, hands down and without question, is the greatest and most gorgeous sounding cymbal I have ever played, heard, and owned in my entire life. When you hit that friggin' thing, it sounds like the ocean. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous instrument. It ain't cheap. It ain't cheap. I don't know exactly how much it is, but I think it could be somewhere between $600 and $700. It's friggin' expensive. But, you know, when you buy a Ferrari, like, you don't ask questions. But that would be it. 22-inch Master Swish. You can Google it on YouTube. You can actually I dedicated a video to it. So after you watch this, after you sign off from this live stream, head over to my channel, or you can just type in Rob Brown Master Swish. I did a video on when I picked that up, and I play it at the end, and you can hear for yourself. That thing is freaking gorgeous. So yeah, that is absolutely my favorite cymbal that I've ever owned in my entire life. And on that note, friends, this was a good hang, man. Will we? We will be doing this again. I'm thinking last week of every month is what the aim is. That's what the goal is. So the last video of every month will be a live stream hang. We'll sit around, talk drums, hang out, have some fun. I'll have my pad by my side because, you know, I'm generally a fidgety type of dude, and I got to do something. So yeah, this is what they're like, man. These are the new live streams. Ass Beatdown. Let me pop that up. Boom. Look at that. Slick. So now that you know, meet me back here at the end of every month for a nice little hang. Other than that, enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. I'm going to sign off. Go chill out somewhere. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. See you next video.